Hello and welcome to another episode of The Dive. This is episode 16. This week, Kobe is out visiting family. Not really sure why you do that, but it does mean we're left with David Freak Turley.
Yay, improvement!
Welcome to the show. If I had to make a tier list of the Dive guests, then anyway, we're going to talk about tier lists
He's
later.
the only dive guest, so
I'm up
he's
the
alone
S
at the
tier.
top.
Number one.
Oh,
It's
man.
all me.
We're off to a great start. We're going to talk to SKT struggles, Olleh solo queue, and also tier lists and the Flamin' Ball. What else are we talking about?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about 714. Of course, that's in the LCS, both North America and Europe this weekend. If it's an Impact Pro play and whatnot. Also, whether or not we're going to see Kayn in the LCS.
Then, as always, we'll chat about some solo queue and NALCS.
All right, first up, we're going to start over in Korea. SKT, they suck again. Well, not really. They've lost 3 matches in a row. They also lost that one game at Rift Rivals. But essentially, it's a 7-game losing streak, which is the longest you can really remember them having. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are twofold. So one, most of the losses are to pretty good teams, like getting beat by Samsung is like, well, Samsung's like a super top echelon Korean team. They're super great. Losing a best of one at Rift Rivals, like, look, EDG is a good team, or WE. I actually forgot which one they played against, but one of the top Chinese teams.
They lost to WE.
It was WE, thank you. Yeah. So, like, they're obviously very good as well. So, yeah, they lost to some good teams. Maybe they also had some upsets in there, and then suddenly now it's a pattern, so the sky is falling. But I think, obviously, they're still very good. I expect them to make Worlds. I expect them to make top 4 at Worlds at the very least. Maybe another Korean team beats them. Maybe that's going to be the chain being broken, but sky is not falling, in my opinion.
Yeah, the worst loss to me is the one they lost to Jin Air most recently when they got O2'd by them. And the worrying thing there is that Huni and Peanut have losing records on the summer split. They're both 5 and 8, actually, even though they don't sub them out at the same time, they vary it. And then Blank and Untar, who are supposed to be the saviors, were 13 and 0, like both individually, and they've also lost the last 3 games. So something isn't quite right, but as you mentioned, they have built up so much trust that they can go on a huge losing streak. And as long as they're in a regional qualifier, as long as they even make Worlds, then they're always a contender to win it.
Yeah, that's true. I'd be kind of curious to hear what you guys think about like Untara versus Huni, because to me that's one that's always seemed like a little bit strange. Like Blank had been performing super well when he subbed in. Untara, like most of the time when I watch him, it just feels like he's kind of there. It doesn't feel like I'm surprised how much play he's getting and that he's winning so much. When you look at his history of games, like there's so many games it's like, oh, 1-2-2, 1-3-3, like 1-2-1, 0-3, and like he has so many games like this where it feels like incredibly low impact. And he has a couple games with like some really nice score lines and some like some big contributions and things like this, but for the most part I don't really understand why he's being played over Huni unless it's literally just, well, we want someone who's going to play passively and like allow the rest of the map to carry.
I mean, I think that's it.
Yeah, I agree.
You look at Huni's score lines, 0-4-4, 4-5-6, 4-6-3. Notice the much larger death numbers on Huni over time. Because Huni's always putting that pressure on, and if they're not playing around it in the right way, or if they think he's getting ganked too much, then that's why you do it.
Yeah. It just always seems a little bit strange to me if it's like you have Huni, who I think most people were kind of really hyping up, really enjoying how well he was playing, and Huni and Peanut, and now Huni, I guess, is kind of getting prioritized less. Peanut is kind of getting prioritized less and stuff as well. And it kind of does raise some questions, I guess, as far as like where is SKT going towards as a team, because everyone's super hyped about this fact that they had like literally carry from every single role. Like Wolf is best support, they have the best jungle, they have the best top, the best everything, right?
Yeah.
And it does feel like maybe they're coming to the conclusion that, hey, that's actually not how you be the best team, is having like the best individual player or like most talented mechanical player, because like you said, you can't have your jungler playing around topside and mid and bot all at the same time. And if everyone wants to play aggressive, you do need jungle support to actually do that.
Exactly. I think that's really hitting the nail on the head, where I think if you're going to play League of Legends optimally, I think you have to pick like a half of the map to play from. As long as your opponents are actually good, you have to pick where you put your wards in and where you actually fight for control wards and where your jungler actually spends his time when he's not clearing jungle camps out without getting behind and farm. So you got to pick 2 lanes. You can't pick 3 unless your opponents are bad. So it can work if you're against bad teams, but if you're playing against Korea's best, which are among the best team in the world, you got to pick something. And if Huni's not willing to like take a knee and chill out, then he's the wrong player for the job.
Yeah, and I also think that it's already an overreaction when people are like, "Oh my goodness, they lost to Jin Air." SKT has had bad losses every year when they've made it all the way to the World Championship.
Right. They didn't
So,
even win Korea last time they won Worlds. They
Yeah.
dropped out in third.
they lost to KT Rolster, who didn't even make it to Worlds.
Yeah.
So Korea's extremely competitive, and they have enough championship points built up essentially from spring that if they finish third again, they're going to go based off points, and I think they'll be completely fine.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, it's like you give it a couple more weeks of losing every game, then maybe you start to worry,
If
right?
they don't, I mean, it's what when they don't qualify for Worlds, I will say that they might not make
Yeah,
Worlds.
yeah.
But even then, there's a chance.
Korea will win.
There's a chance that they might just show
There's a
up and they
chance
let
they'll
Faker
try.
play anyway, and like
Yeah.
Right.
they're like, well, he's here. I guess they should play,
Yeah.
and then they'll win.
And then you have 2014 Worlds again, where just a different Korean team wins Worlds. And like, all right, then back to SKT for the next 3 years.
Because even to your point, like last year going into Worlds, a lot of people were talking about, oh, well, SKT is showing a lot of weakness. Like, I don't know, maybe this is the year they can't really do it. You know, Rox is supposed to be better than them. Like all these teams, maybe going to take them down. Maybe they even lose to. Oh, JK, they won.
They're trending downwards though. If you look at their final scores,
Yeah.
Yeah.
3-0
Oh, there
in
you go.
2013,
Very-
3-1 in 2000.
That's a worrying trend if I've
3-2
ever seen one.
2016.
Only a 75%
Yeah.
win rate in,
In
World
Finals
tournaments.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're losing more in their World Championship victories.
I mean, Faker at this point may as well retire, right? Like you're washed up.
All right, someone who's not washed up, Olleh, he hit rank 1 on the ladder in solo queue. That was
Yeah.
kind of big news on Reddit because it's pretty rare you see a support hit rank 1, let alone a support who is the primary starter for an LCS team because these guys spend so much time scrimming and getting number 1. I mean, is he like starting his queue in one game while scrimming, and then by the time his scrim is over, his queue pops and you can play the solo queue game? Because normally the queue time is a gate sometimes to getting there.
I mean, you can do
How's
it
he done it?
if you want to really commit the time. Like you look at some guys he's talking about starters, you know, Sneaky not rank 1, but he was like he top 10 or whatever he finished last season. And there are guys who literally go straight from scrims and then play all night and then sleep and then restart. And that's the kind of stuff that it does take to really climb. There's a couple other supports who, I mean, like Stunt, he's not a starter right now, but he is an LCS guy, and he traditionally has like multiple high-ranking accounts. I think he has 3 accounts in maybe the top 15 right now for support. So you can do it,
Yeah.
but it's always interesting to me to see like how different I think the skills required for a support in LCS are to solo queue, because I do think that like while some roles transition very well over, you know, it's like we talked about Mike Young. He's like, well, you know, I just play like I do in solo queue and I win, and that's great. But for support, it is a massively different skill set. I think.
Yeah.
Climbing in solo queue as a support is about playmaking, is about like, you know, moving around the map, carrying multiple lanes through playmaking, and it's like when you look at Olleh. 2 most played champions, Thresh and Bard, 73% win rate on 74 games on Thresh. Like, you're not sitting around. You're walking around the map and winning every lane.
Yeah,
Right.
one thing that's interesting about that, just as you mentioned it, Stunt is on Immortals as well.
Yep.
So, and he's currently ranked 9. So while Olleh plays Bard and Thresh, Stunt currently has just a bunch of Janna games, Taric games, and Sona games.
Hey,
here
Taric's great
because
now.
he's just playing the coin supports as well as Taric. So I agree with you that it is pretty much that, but
Yeah.
Stunt also just really good at solo queue.
Yeah, sure. And what I think is really interesting as well, and you talked at the very beginning about like it's rare for supports to climb up, and that's actually true. I actually saw a report a little while ago with internal data where it was like basically it looked at MMR differences and then using that like conflated with what role you're playing with what's like the more likely team to win. So basically it says like if you're the best player in the game, right, which role is the most likely to carry from?
If
and
you
it was
are
like-
the best player.
Right. And it was basically like, you know, the biggest MMR difference you know, in the role. And it was like mid's number 1,
Yeah.
top's number 2, like jungle's number 3, and then bot lane and support. Which is like, well, which should surprise no one. Like, of course, mid lane's the most important role. There's a reason SKT's been the best team in the world with Faker in there, and support's the worst. And so, the fact that Olleh is on the sort of least impactful solo queue role while still getting number 1, where the game is balancing for the fact that he's the best player on the ladder,
Yeah.
like via the matchmaking, and he's still winning more than he needs to. Like, that's really, really good.
And it is also like when you compare to like a lot of other sports that people think of as top, like when you look at, you talk about SKT, Wolf is a guy who famously like is not usually very
He
good.
doesn't
at
even
solo
play
queue,
support in solo
right?
queue.
Like exactly, and he's never usually super high compared to like some of the other SKT guys are usually multiple counts in challenger, high challenger, etc. When you look at guys, you know, like Mithy, I've seen as a guy who isn't always super high, even though he's considered kind of the best support in Europe. Aframu, you know, I've seen him in like Diamond 1, Low Masters, this area. Like,
Sure.
you know, he's around 150 LP right now. So it's like these are things where it's like, even with a lot of games, a lot of the supports don't climb or can't climb. And, you know, there can be different reasons. Maybe they don't care as much or aren't trying as hard or whatever you want to say. But still, it's definitely impressive, I think, to see that. And Olleh is a guy who it's not like he's just doing it solo queue, right? Like I think he's been one of the best LCS supports
Yeah.
for a while. So the fact
I
that
think he's number
able
one
to,
personally.
yeah, I mean, I think him or Smoothie. Smoothie, obviously, C9 like isn't performing as well, so it's like it's harder to kind of
Yeah, I
compare
think
them. I
it
guess.
just shows how committed he is because
Yeah.
the majority of LCS players I talk about when they don't climb in solo queue, they just say they don't have the time.
Mm-hmm.
They scrim all the time. And I mean, maybe there's a world where Stunt is actually getting 30% of the scrims here and Olleh is solo queuing, but I don't think so, right?
But would he play solo queue while his team is scrimming though? Like that 3-hour block
Yeah,
where
exactly. You
like
look at the number of games he's played. It's still a pretty. It's not an absurdly high number. 58% win ratio on this main account. I'm just really impressed that he's had the
Yeah.
dedication to do this.
I mean, it really isn't that many games though. Like it's more impressive, I think, that he got
What's the
there.
number?
He has like
He's
under 400.
221 and 161.
wow, that is
100
actually pretty low.
So it's
380
380 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, you look at Aframu's account, he has around 800, right?
Wow.
There's a lot of people that have like a lot more games, certainly, when you look at Challenger, when you look at the leaderboards and stuff. So it's like,
I'm a Cutie Pie has 737 games on his main.
yeah,
So-
and he has like 3
Oh, but yeah,
accounts that are
he's
up
only
there,
like 3,
right?
yeah,
Like
that's
he
true.
would have a
Yeah.
couple
The
thousand.
ones at the very top of Challenger actually generally don't have super high play rates because you're going to get to like rank 5 and then play on something lower just for queue times most of the time.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But like a lot of these guys do have a lot of accounts. Either way,
sure.
I think it's super impressive. And Olleh is someone who has really been impressive to me for a long time.
Yeah. Would you put him at the top of your tier list though for supports?
Right now, probably, yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about tier lists a little bit as
Okay.
well because we've actually been doing these since the start of the split.
Yeah.
The first few didn't catch much traction. I made a list in week 2, I believe.
I did too.
Yeah, but it was your second one that essentially got screenshotted onto Reddit.
Yeah.
Said sorry for the poor quality.
Oh yeah.
Meaning the poor quality of the picture, but taken to mean the poor quality of your list.
Yep.
But I just want to start the discussion of tier lists, how Flame works, what we are and what we aren't okay with. Like, are there any
Sure.
regrets? Because both you and I have had highly discussed tier lists.
Yeah.
Lately.
So I'll start, I guess. So I'll try to go through the points in order. I mean, the point of the tier list is rating their performances so far this split.
Mhm.
So Doublelift is not the 6th best bot laner in the history of North America. He's probably the best bot laner in the history of North America. But that's not what I graded. I graded how well did you play in the first 4 weeks, which does not count Rift Rivals. It does not count week 5. It does not count week 6. It does not count any of those other things happening. So it's how well had he done in those 8 matches. And so that's the first thing out there. I've heard Flame like, oh, I must hate TSM or something, or I'm biased against Doublelift, whatever. It's like that was one of the players I'm closer with. I've talked to that guy so many times. Like I like him as a person. So it's interesting, like how many excuses are given to me for why my ratings are the way they are, as
Right.
opposed to just I actually believe this as far as how they're played. So there have definitely been a lot of issues with people misunderstanding what I'm trying to present or how I got there. Now, I'm not saying that my list is perfect, but I do believe in the choices that I made. And so, did players change how they played in the next 2 weeks? Yes. And will the week 6 one be different or the week 7 one be different? Almost definitely.
Isaac, you made a top lane list.
Yeah, I did make a top lane list, but it was perfect. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
no one
yeah,
said anything.
everyone loved
controversy.
it, so there was no
just saw it, and they're
controversy.
like, all right, good list, exactly the same as I would have it. Great. I mean, I think that the tier list stuff is interesting, and I am surprised sometimes at how aggressive the reactions are. But like, I think it's a positive thing when people care enough that they want to discuss this, and that people are showing interest in it. Like people should not be making their tier list to create drama or anything like that, or being disingenuous. But when you create a tier list and you believe like in your picks as you did, it's, in my opinion, irrelevant if I disagree. It's irrelevant if Jad disagrees, because you are presenting your opinion, you're presenting your tier list,
Yes.
and then people can discuss that, right? Like I don't have to agree with you, like
And I know you don't.
and I didn't with some of those picks, right? And like I don't have to agree with Jad, and he doesn't have to agree with me, and I think that's the beauty of it, and the fact that people actually like are feeling, passionate enough about it that they want to talk about it and they want to discuss it and argue it, I think is a really positive thing for the game. And it's like, it shows like how interested people are in it. I also just think it's fun that the pros are kind of picking up on
They
it.
pay attention.
Like it was
they
kind of
do.
funny. Like, so, I got some comments and stuff on the tier list when I did it, but it was like, 10 or 15 tweets or something, and people, like, there was no big post. There was like, it didn't create like a lot of drama or anything, but it's really funny to me because once all the drama started, I then got messages from a couple top laners who were like, hey, I heard you did a tier list. what was I ranked? and I'm just like, what? And I'm like, oh, well, can you link me the VOD, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't know, man. It was like weeks ago. You can go back and watch it if you want.
From week 3 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But it was really funny. Like, Zig was one of the guys who messaged me and stuff. And I chat with Zig every so often. And he was just like, what was I ranked? I was like, ooh. I was like,
you're 0 and 3.
Yeah, like this was week 2. You guys haven't won a single game.
Keep this in mind.
Things weren't looking so hot for you, Zig. I think you were at the bottom. It's just like no response. I'm like, that's unlucky.
Yeah. I mean, that is one thing. It sucks for the players that get put in D or C tier, or even a player like Doublelift who you ranked at B. Even coming into this, I still disagree with this list, like a little bit.
That's fair.
Your list 4 weeks ago, I thought I would not have put Apollo in A tier. I think
I've always thought Cody's Sun should have been higher too.
But even way, you're going to move it around. And then my list last week, I put Jensen S+ over Bjergsen S because I figured it would be a cop-out if I said, they're both great. They're going to be the same because I think Jensen has performed at a higher level than Bjergsen through 5 weeks of the split, right? And then I backed up that opinion. He has better stats. He's had to do more, blah, blah, blah.
He beat him heads up.
Yeah, and he also beat him heads up. He solo killed him more than he got solo killed. There are a lot of things for Jensen, but it was funny because my list was literally just about the two. Everyone just ignored everyone else on the list.
Well, that's the thing is everyone
don't exist.
Is everyone's just talking about TSM because of the most popular team. Shocking. Yeah. It's Doublelift and Bjergsen being like, well, why aren't they rated higher? They're my favorite player. They're my favorite team.
Well, it's also talking about C9. And one of the things that I was kind of laughing about a little bit is, like a lot of the comments were like, wow, like NA casters are so biased towards C9. They think that C9 has the best player in every role, blah, blah, blah. Well, I guess why does C9 suck then, right? But it's like, because people are remembering S+, they're remembering you putting Sneaky at the top.
Yeah.
Riv, I think, putting Smoothie very high. No one remembers that I had like Ray and Impact. I had Ray and Impact at like the bottom of this list or like very near the bottom because like to me, people are kind of overlooking that and overlooking the fact that contracts would probably be one of the maybe lower performance. I think Kobe did list. I don't actually know where he put him, but like,
well, when Kobe was going to do the list, it was like week 3 and the jungle was so volatile. And if you don't feel like you can make a good list, you just don't make the list. He did junglers to watch or something. I think you'll do the list later for junglers.
Well, either way, like to me, about C9, like the problem for C9 has been mostly about their top lane. Like when you look at their dip in performance from last split and over the last year towards this split, like they had, in my opinion, the best top laner in the league for a while with impacts, like after the top die stuff, like for quite a while.
Away, basically.
Exactly. Like I think Hanser was probably better than him for quite a while, but then Impact was up there, and either way, it was arguable. These guys are really godlike. Ray was one of the best carry players, and now neither of them are performing well. And I think that when you have one role that is struggling so heavily, like it's not like the gap between C9 and these other teams was so massive. Like I think that is the main reason. So I just found it a little bit funny that people were like, "Oh, everyone thinks that C9 has the best player in every role. Why aren't they best team?" Well, they don't have the best player in every role. They have some really good players, though.
As far as tier lists in general, I think we should keep doing them.
Yeah.
And I do think that it is tough for the players to look at the tier lists and then deal with the community reaction. The same way that anyone in the public eye needs to be able to stand up to sports talk or discussion in general, right? It happens way more in other sports as far as ranking players against each other. ESPN does an NBA rank every year where they rank players 200 to 1. And if players want to make caster tier lists, feel free.
Great,
no one's stopping you from ranking people because that's what you do with things that you watch and enjoy. So,
and to be fair, I've seen that so many times. Like I've gotten called the worst caster by Reddit like 100 times that I've personally seen. I'm sure there's more that I've missed.
Well,
like, it's happened all the time.
And there's also, as far as like community reaction, I mean, I would be willing to bet that Freak got about 1,000 times more negative reaction than any of the players did based on like being D tier or whatever. And like the caster ranking thing is kind of funny because Reginald tweeted out, "Oh, I'm gonna make a caster tier list," and then
I want to see it.
I want to see it too.
All the comments responding to that then are people with their own caster tier lists.
And I'm always number 8.
Yeah, you're actually.
There's actually one that just like forgot Zyrene existed, which I actually took as a compliment. Like Zyrene's forgettable. I'm number 7.
That's not a tier list. I mean, the first one I had wasn't ranked. Anyway. That's it for tier lists.
Okay.
Meta, state of the game. First thing we'll touch on is Kayn is available. I think this will be fairly quick. The question I ask is, will we see him on this patch?
No.
I say no. I don't necessarily think it's a big problem with the kit. I just don't think his numbers are there currently.
The quick cut I will say is I think if we see Kayn, we'll see Darkened Kayn. I think he's more like reachable skill level wise. Like I don't think he's like an Ivern release where the champion's actually busted, but it took a while to learn. Like I think the actual top level of like a perfectly played Kayn is not quite so high. But even then, like Ivern took like 2 months. Like I remember casting Ivern, for example, at IEM Gyeonggi when he was like objectively an insanely powerful champion. He's like a 60% win rate solo queue champion, and he like had a couple bad games, and like Papa Smithy or whoever's like, "Ooh, I don't know if this champion's good." I'm like, "Well, his team's losing.
Yeah.
Like this is a supportive jungler. Like trust me, he's actually very good. Just bad teams are playing him right now." Lo and behold, became like a top 3 jungler
Yeah.
after getting several nerfs.
Yeah,
And, like, it just takes time sometimes.
I think it'll take some time, but to me that it is more about like the champion probably just needs some more stats, right? Like probably just needs some higher numbers on some of this stuff. I think that people are starting to learn it though, and I've seen like a lot of pros even talking about how they enjoy playing it. So I think eventually it will creep in, and eventually it will get the buffs. Like very rarely does something sit at like 40% win rate or whatever for that long without getting
Yeah,
attention,
here's always a
unless it's
question.
something that they think is a big problem for the game.
What percentage win rate would it have to be on Lollalytics to see pro? Because that number's
I also think
different
he's
for
not
every
40,
champion.
right? Like I'm checking it and looking at his win rate daily, just like what it is in each day. He's up to like 45, 46 on a daily, and that's still splitting between Darkin and an Assassin.
Jungler or
again,
top?
I think it was the overall. So that's even not even looking for his best role. That's just looking at Kayn overall as a champion, not looking at which best transform, not looking at the best role, and it's mid 40s, which means
I think he's definitely better in jungle.
I think he's probably better right now Darkin, probably better right now jungle, which means this guy is like approaching 50 pretty quickly as a Darkin jungler. And like personally, like I've been playing my Diamond 5 account, and so it's not the same skill level as these players, obviously, as like the LCS players, but like he's done well every single game I've played against him so far. I think he's actually reasonably powerful.
My experience has almost always been Kayn feeding. Look, I
That's
think.
fair.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think,
I mean,
I
it's
think
a sample
like
size thing. I had 4 games.
Absolutely.
yeah.
I don't think I've lost to Kayn. Every
I've
time he locks in on the enemy team, I say, "All right, this is gonna be a good one."
I've seen Kayn basically every game I've been playing for the last like a long time, just because I think everyone wants to play him.
Sure.
And like diamond level games or whatever, and it always feels like he's getting slammed. I have seen a couple games where he absolutely went off, and it's like I think the Darken form is pretty crazy. Just the amount of healing that actually he can have,
Super
like
sustaining.
through his ultimate, like. It's actually shocking. Like he'll pop into you at 10% health, and he comes out with
Coming at
Death
full if
Dance
he
at
doesn't
like
tank.
almost
Yeah.
full health, and you're just like, what the hell? So I definitely think that he's like on the edge of being one of those really good junglers, and the jungle paths are very tough. Like playing as top lane, I find them pretty frustrating. If you're playing against anyone that has gank assist, it's very hard. Similarly to like Rek'Sai or whatever, to avoid some of those ganks. So I think he could get in there like. If he's a couple percent higher kind of thing, like, but maybe he doesn't even need to be, right? Like maybe he is actually at that point where people have learned him enough that Darkin can actually just work. Because if you take out the assassin thing and you take out like a lot of people that are playing him very poorly because it has a high play rate, then maybe he's actually just a good champ.
Yeah.
Personally, I think he's actually like objectively slightly strong, but people are still learning it. That's my opinion.
I feel like he's slightly weak, but what I really want to talk about is 714 entering the pro game.
Yeah.
This week.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff, but we're going to try and break it down into some smaller sections. Tank junglers is what I want to start with.
Yep.
Because that's what I am most familiar with. I play the most of them. And I think they're even more likely to be seen because of lethality and because of how good tanks can be against lethality. So Cho'Gath received some massive buffs. He is fairly easy to play around from a pro perspective, but I think he's so objectively powerful that we'll see him. But Maokai and Sej are things that I think should be close to dominating the league if the pros have put enough time onto tanks and are quick enough to turn around their playstyles. Because power-wise, I think they're there.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're really strong. Cho'Gath, like I can see people not wanting to play it in pro simply because the Q is like so unreliable against people who are actually good at avoiding it and good at dodging and stuff. It's like that's one frustration I can see with it, and a lot of players getting really annoyed by that. Whereas Maokai and Sejuani, like they don't really have the same issues. Like the CC is so easy to put on. Like I've even been playing a fair bit of Maokai top, and I think it's incredibly strong top as well. So like these champions are just objectively very, very strong. I think that we will be seeing them in pro play. Cho'Gath, I'm not sure. Like if someone has put in time, then yeah.
Yeah.
But I could see people getting frustrated and just giving them up.
Yeah, we already saw a little bit of Mao and Sej last week, and it didn't even have a huge amount of effectiveness, but just paying attention to high elo, NA solo queue, I think it's coming into the NALCS. Specifically, one of the big problems for tank junglers in the past was the warrior junglers would just build longswords, clear the jungle faster, and beat you. But when Bami Cinder is 900 gold, we talked about this beforehand, you clear so much faster, not to mention the mana increase on the item. These are the champions that it helps the most. On top of that, Bramble Vest, not Thornmail, is still a pretty good item if you're over-indexed on AD.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so talking about the champions getting played, I agree, Cho'Gath's insane. I think we should see him. I think if junglers haven't tried to learn the champion at all, I think it's a mistake. You might not find that it's good, but not trying, I think, is kind of not forgivable. Sejuani got like 6 picks in the LCK last, this week, 713 had 6 Sejuani picks in a Sejuani ban already in LCK. So like
And
clearly we're
Sejuani
seeing her.
Sejuani was being played top a while ago when it first got all those buffs, and it
Right.
was being played jungle. Like people
Yeah.
should have played some Sejuani on the updated
Right.
patch.
Yeah, the champion's clearly playable. I agree. I think tank junglers are in for sure. I think Duskblade is definitely in. Worth pointing out that the 714 is with hot fixes in. So like Duskblade got some damage off on the passive. It's like a 10% damage hit mid game. It's not huge. There was like some minor nerfs to Singed and Nunu in there as well because
Yeah.
those champions are kind of over too.
Well, the Nunu ones I don't think were that minor. I actually think that
yeah, Nunu was
Nunu's
5
win
move
rate
speed.
actually went down quite a lot.
Yeah, it was quite a bit. He lost a lot of health.
Yeah.
Well, let's predict then, as far as lethality. What will lethality do to the pick ban? Is Zed coming back? Are we seeing Jhin and Varus again?
We're
Or-
seeing Jhin 100%. I
Yep.
think. I think Jhin is going to be the top AD. Like people are already playing him a lot. I think Jhin. People may be picking even like over Caitlyn and stuff. Like I think that's going to
'Cause
be.
Well,
Caitlyn
Caitlyn got
nerfed.
nerfed. I think
Yeah.
Caitlyn should not be a top 3 bot laner anymore.
Yeah. So I think Jhin is
I
like
think she will. I mean, this is just
her
maybe she-
sieging strength is so
yeah.
good and her lane bullying is still so good. Like I still think people want Caitlyn for different reasons.
Fair.
But like I think Jhin for sure is up there. I think that like we certainly could see some players, guys like High and stuff, playing Talon because I actually think that like the extra damage that Talon has now with Duskblade is pretty absurd.
Yeah.
I think you can certainly see picks like that, but I don't think we're gonna see it everywhere. I think it's in general like more of a solo queue thing, like picks that aren't played a lot in LCS, things like Quinn and stuff. I think are insane with new
Riven,
lethality. Yeah,
Graves.
right. Misfortune.
yeah.
Yeah.
MF could be seen.
I think you might see Altec play it or something.
Sneaky plays it a lot in solo
Yeah.
queue as well. Like
Mhm.
if they think that it's workable, like I could
Mhm.
certainly see that being brought out.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Kalista was the number 2
Mhm.
bot laner presence in Pro playing 713. I think she remains a top 3 champion. Xayah was number 3. I think she remains top 3. I don't think Jhin goes from 10% to number 1.
Mhm.
Like I don't think Duskblade is. I mean, it's obviously very good. It buffs him. I think he goes above 10%
Yeah.
presence, but I don't personally think he's like suddenly the best because keep in mind, tank busting matters, right? If
Yeah.
you're playing a Maokai and a Gargoyle, Stoneplate, Thornmail, like Jarvan in the top lane, like you don't win games if you're playing Jhin. Like if you blind pick Jhin in solo queue and they're like Rammus, Zach, Sejuani, you're like, okay, we lost the game.
Yeah, and they Galliard
can't kill anything.
J4 against Jhin.
Unless
Right.
you have like
You instantly
Cassio
lose.
and like people who can shred
Right.
tanks and stuff
Mhm.
on
And
the
hey,
roles.
maybe that changes the metagame
Yeah.
further, but
Yeah.
but like you're never going to see Jhin assassin the same team. You instantly lose to double tank. Like I should never see that without like the jungler and top laner showing already.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair to a point, but I also think that people pick comps that have time limits, and that's been something that people are always willing to do.
Mhm.
We've seen like full AD comps. We've seen comps that's like, well, you better hope you win in 20
I
minutes
just
or
think
you
they
lose, right? Like-
and I think that's wrong, but I
Yeah.
think you're right. The way we might see it, I just
Mhm.
think it's wrong.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Let's touch in on Bramblevest because did you watch last week's episode? We had a heated discussion about Bramblevest.
I don't remember watching that. No.
You said it was like mind-numbingly OP.
I still think
remember
it's
actually
I still
really-
think
yeah.
it's really good.
I think it's good. I don't. So here's my thoughts on Bramblevest because I've gotten a few games on it. I think when you complete it as a relatively early game purchase, it's very good. So if I'm against a heavy AD team as a tank jungler, for instance, I'll do Cinderhulk, Ninja Tabi, and Bramblevest,
Mhm.
and I'll feel like a god. But I don't think it's an item that you rush in lane. And also the Thornmail upgrade, I think is worse than it used to be.
It is.
Overall wise, like it's a little bit of health and it gets technically a little bit more effective health, but the actual damage return from Thornmail is much worse than it used to be. So if you're going to say Thornmail is OP now, it would have been OP later. The benefit though is that you get to sit on Bramblevest, and that's what I like it for.
Well, and I actually think when I was talking last week, I'm not talking about it on junglers. I think it can be really strong on junglers. I think you actually do rush it in a lot of matchups in lane, and I think it is OP in lane. Like you're playing against Jace, you want Ninja Tabbies and Bramblevest. You're playing against Fiora, you want Ninja Tabbies and Bramblevest.
Which
You're
champions
playing
are you
against
able to
Tryndamere.
build that on against Jace? Because let's just talk competitive, right? They pick Jace, you pick X to build these items.
Maokai,
Bramblevest.
Shen,
Yeah, I think Maokai can do
Cho'Gath
it.
top. I think that like any sort of champion like that. I even think you're playing J4, like you're playing to survive the lane and be more useful later and stuff. Like any of those sorts of champions, I think it can be extremely effective. Like I even think stuff like Kled and stuff can do this. Like when you're against pure physical damage auto attacking champions, that combo, it's not just about like, oh well, all you can do is stand in your turret. You actually trade so effectively, like going aggressive too. Like I just think that combo is so ridiculously powerful. Even if they are not like super sustainy champions, and if they are sustainy champions, then it's really good. Like I think it's really, really good.
Yeah, I think you would do it if they don't have a big magic damage threat on their team.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they do, I think the cost is too high for the lane advantage against an AD damage dealer. Which to me is the line between like effective and OP. because if there are reasons where you wouldn't do it, then
If they're
it's
playing
not as
Elise and
OP.
Italy, you're like, ooh, maybe
It's
don't buy
like,
this
I
item.
probably need a little bit of health or a little bit more wave clear with a Bombing
Yeah.
Cinder or a Tiamat or a little bit more damage, like all
Yeah.
these other things.
I definitely agree with that. Like if I'm playing against Elise or Italy, then I probably want to build some HP and not just the pure armor. But anytime I'm playing against an AG jungler, I want this like 100%.
Elise
If I'm
and
playing
Jarvan,
against
100%.
if I'm playing against a tank jungler, I probably still want this just because I think it's so good for the lane, especially for like some of the champions like Cho'Gath top. I actually think is pretty reasonable. I don't know that we'll see it in pro play, but I played it a bit
just
and
playable.
and you can build like these no HP builds and just like be alting creeps and you get enough feast stacks, like you actually have a ton of health, even just building like, oh, my early items are a bramble vest, ninja tabbies, and a glacial shroud. I built 0 HP and I have a lot of health. Like, it's so there are certainly champions I think that's really strong on, but I think the biggest reason people are not complaining about this item more is that most of the tanks are actually just trash in top lane. Like tank junglers are really good. I think there's only a couple tanks that are actually reasonable to be played in the top lane. Everything else sucks. And that I think is
kind of true.
Is the bigger problem right now. It's like you look at like, oh, Mundo, like, oh, he's a good win rate in jungle. What does he have in top lane? Oh, 44%. And it's like, oh, what about this guy? I bet he's really good. I just played him in jungle. Let's play him. Oh, okay, never mind. It's like almost everything just sucks in top lane for tanks right now because there's like Black Cleaver, all these Black Cleaver builders and people who want to build, like Blade of Rune King and all these things and like all these duelists who just smash you. So like that to me is more why I think people are not complaining about it. But like if we see some of these buffs go through on tanks and they start showing up more in top lane, I think people are going to realize like how good Bramble Vest is because I still think it's insane in top lane.
So I do think there are some playable top lane tanks. Like I think Maokai is actually a fine
Maokai's
top
really
lane
good.
tank. I think Singed is actually bonkers even after the hotfix. Like I think he's super.
Oh,
super
Singed
good.
is another one who certainly can do that.
Singed could definitely do that.
But you're absolutely right. Like we're in a metagame where like anti-tank items are already very good. Like Black Cleaver and Rune King are just strong items on their own right. And you're like, oh, I'm against a Maokai.
They're good rush items.
Great.
And they just shut you down.
That's exactly what they're supposed to fight against. So I feel really good about this.
Those tanks definitely could come in. And Singed I wasn't really thinking of, but
I think
Singed definitely could be
good.
in pro play as well.
And Looper we know plays him. Echo Fox maybe they'll play Brandini again, but. I mean, Looper played Singed this year without him being insane, and so I think, I think the champion should be learned. I think he's hard to learn, but I think his baseline's so good that you can put 5 games on and bring him in scrim.
I actually disagree with that. I think Singed is incredibly hard to learn.
I know he's incredibly hard to play. I think he's that strong.
So yeah, but I'm just saying, it takes more than 5 games, I think, to learn Singed. So Singed, it's like, oh, well, now I know how to flip him. Okay, I know Singed. Well, guess what? There's actually matchups where you don't get to lane. Like, you actually have to know how to proxy properly and stuff. And if you're talking about like only bringing it out in good matchups and like as like a counter pick, then sure, maybe you don't need a lot of games. But like to be one of those godlike like Singed one trick people, there's like, oh, well, I'm laning against AP Ken. I guess I can't enter the lane for the first like 5 waves of the game. So you better know how to proxy or the game's already over for you. So like that's where I disagree. And I think that proxying as a skill as a top laner is actually pretty difficult. Like it's not just about like, oh, well, I know how to walk behind the turret. Okay, great. But like, do you know when you can do it? Do you know like how to not like give up too much? Do you know when it's okay to actually be like feeding for that experience and stuff? So that's why I think he can be complicated. But if people want to bring him out in specific matchups, I think that's totally reasonable. And you probably wouldn't need a lot of games.
And there's a lot going on. We also haven't touched on a change that I think a lot of people are sleeping on. It was another change to the ancient coin line.
It's OP.
The getting rid of the skill biscuit or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, elixir of skill, right?
And essentially giving back the Captain Boots passive from a couple years ago.
It was Captain Boots.
Where when you complete the support quest, people move towards you faster.
You get Janna passive.
You look at the win rates, and it's all the enchanter supports who go coin first that are the highest. And then I've been seeing so much Sona in high elo solo queue, and I liked Lemon Nation's builds last week on Morg as well as Sona. So while we do have this, playmaking support revolution with Thresh and Bard coming in, something that I think a lot of people aren't talking about is maybe we just see Janna, Nami, anyone who can build ancient coin actually start dominating, especially if you're going tank junglers and a bruiser top lane. Then the enchanter supports have much higher effectiveness. So on top of all the other stuff we have with lethality and all this other stuff, I think these supports could actually be super in.
I think coin just gives too much gold.
It's way too much gold.
I think the item is way overtuned.
Yeah,
I agree completely.
I think that's the problem with it. Like I think, like the Captain's Boot enchant, like all this stuff is really cool and like it should feel good. It should feel strong. I think that's great.
Yeah.
But it's like, so I was looking, I was playing a game and I was actually, it was with a Sona on the other team. The Sona essentially did this Ardent Sensor rush, like before building anything else, like before even like a Sight Stone or anything, right? They like got like upgraded their coin and then they went straight to Ardent Sensor.
Yeah.
And when I looked at my support, who was like, I don't know. It was like a Lulu or some shit, right? Like, and they're playing Spell Thieves. They had a Frostfang as well. I compared the gold income. The like this guy completed his Ardent Sensor. I was like, okay, wait, how does he have that? And then I moused over. He had like 1,300 gold compared to like 300 from the Spell Thieves or
Yeah.
something. And that person was probably not optimally using their
No,
Frostfang.
Lulu's
EV
not a great
cooldown,
Spell Thieves user.
right? So it's
Like
like
she
that-
should just go coin.
I
But
agree, but my point is
but you're
just
right.
it's like that's an absurd difference,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And it's like, and many people will not optimally use it, whereas the coins are like, oh, there's 40 gold, I guess I'll pick that up, right? Like it's very easy and it's very intuitive, and they increased the pickup range on it, which was like one of my big complaints, and it gives so much gold, and it gives a sick passive, and it's easy to use,
And it's cheap.
and it's like
the upgrade of Eye of the
ah.
Oasis is 1,900 gold.
Yeah,
That's the whole
it's
item.
super cheap.
Whereas
Yeah.
the other ones are 2,300 and 2,200 respectively. So it's
way too good.
also super cheap.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add about this
Yeah,
patch?
I think it's an interesting metagame, right? Because I think coin being this good, and it's been this good for a patch or two now. Like I think the passive change like to the quest completion was a nerf. Personally, I'm not sure if that's actually true, but it feels like it to me. I think it's metagame warping though. This item is so good that you can say, okay, look, I can have the best support item, so I'm gonna put it on champions where it's the best support item. Now I have so much gold income, I can buy more support items on the champions, so I'm tankier than your tanks. I do like more, like arguably like coin Zyra does more damage than Belthi's Zyra because you just get an Abyssal Scepter faster or whatever you're gonna buy, like your Leandries, whatever. But I think it's metagame warping. Like I think you should be playing the Jannas and Sorakas and Lulus and Namis of the world, going coin, having more items, people, and having hey, I have an 8-minute Ardent Sensor.
Yeah.
Suddenly Callista's the best champion in the game.
And
it's metagame warping.
Here's the one question we have to answer though, because we kind of touched on this yesterday when we were talking about patch 7.14. If everything is broken, nothing is broken. So the pro teams and the analysts need to figure out which one they optimize around, because we know Duskblade and Lethality are really good. We know Cinderhulk and Tank Junglers are really good. We know the
Fighter
Black
tops are
Cleaver
really good.
Titanic top laner tops are really good. And we know that playmaking supports were good, but also enchanter supports are good. So essentially the question we need to answer is, what is the best and what should you be optimizing around to win in this patch?
So here's the thing. It's like like everything can be broken, and like, and nothing is broken as far as that, but like it's situation by situation, right? Like I don't pick Soraka probably into like this hardcore divey team, right? But Soraka and Janna can be both broken, and I will pick Janna into this team that has like Talon and Maokai and all these people, because I will just ult them out, and like so you can have these people who are like all super strong. Like 3 of the top 4 win rate supports right now: Janna, Soraka, and Sona. Maokai is in there too. Like that's like insanely low play rate. So essentially the 3 top that people are actually playing are those champions, right? And you can just be like, okay, this is the bucket of OP ones. I'll pick the one that best fits our composition, or I'll pick the one that best answers what your opponents are doing. And I think that's simply how you have to do it as far as like pro play and drafting and stuff, right? Because it's like, yeah, sure, like if you want to talk about Maokai jungle, maybe that's incredibly strong, but like I don't know the poor matchups for Maokai jungle, right? But maybe there is one and you don't want it in that situation.
What's your blind pick 5v5 mega team comp for this patch?
I'll start. Singed, Cho'Gath, Malzahar, Tristana, Janna. I think you have everything.
I was going to go Maokai jungle because I think he's better for team fighting.
Okay.
You had Singed top. That's a tough one because he's so strong.
But it's
But he
blind picks.
doesn't
Are you gonna
necessarily
like
team fight.
Are you
Yeah,
gonna
exactly.
blind Kennen?
I think I'd blind Jarvan because I
Okay.
think he's there.
I'm okay.
I
With
think
playing
I'd
Singed
blind
for that.
Malzahar because I think he's an OP mid laner that everyone's sleeping on. I would then do Sona because I feel
She's
like
more well-rounded.
you're going to ball up and that, and then the AD carry is actually really tough. I'd have to check.
Yeah.
Trist is generically.
I
speaking
love
good.
Trist, and she's a good tank killer.
Yeah, or Callista.
Yeah, I mean, Callista's fine too.
Yeah,
I
she
personally
snuffles
like
things really hard.
super love Trist, but yeah, I mean,
You have
Callista's
one?
clearly.
Yeah, I mean,
strong.
I think that like it's tough. It's tough between like Cho'Gath and Singed for me, because I actually think that both of them are so good top lane. I think Maokai should certainly be in there, top or jungle. And then I think you essentially put Cho'Gath in the other, and like
Playing show.
Yeah, double
like,
tank.
Okay.
like
Because you need double tank, but then you also need tank shredding, right?
Yeah,
I think.
and I think that like I'd probably be something like Cho'Gath or Singed top, like Maokai jungle. Like I'm super on the Malzahar hype train and have been for a really long time, and I think it's like actually bizarre that it's not played in pro play, because it's like
It's not
skill
like his
and-
matchups exist. Like Azir would destroy him, but Azir doesn't exist right now.
Yeah, I mean he's insane. Even like Azir champions like that who are annoying. Once you have essentially like level 5 in a lost chapter, you can play a completely non-interactive mid lane,
The
and
thing
there's
is,
like
he'll
almost
one-shot Void Links.
it actually doesn't matter once you have enough levels, because you EQ the front line and the front line just dies.
fair.
It's like it's hilarious how easy it is to push lanes on this champion. Like I've
That's
played a lot of Malzahar,
That's
so I definitely think him. I think Jhin is really good, but like, and Malzahar kind of bridges the gap as far as like tank shredding, because I think Malzahar actually can do that well. So you
Mm.
could play someone like
You can get away
Jhin,
with Jhin. Okay.
and then like I don't know, Sona or whatever, right? Like I also
Yeah.
think you can play playmaking supports with that. Like you can play
Yeah.
a
Bard,
Thresh
Thresh.
Jhin or a Bard
Yeah.
Jhin, and
Thresh is
like
definitely in there.
have like a kill lane, and then you have Malzahar to kind of melt tanks, and you have a big front
Yeah.
line.
The reason I like Sona or the squishy enchanters on this is because your tank boy builds Locket. So if
boy.
they try to assassinate the Sona, you shield it out, and then Sona gets to continue to sustain. That's where I think the OP synergies exist on this patch.
Something else I'd kind of like to talk about a little bit is tank itemization, which I think is actually
same.
super cool now.
I love this too.
And I really like tank itemization in this patch. Because there's
You want
actually
to talk about them?
Pardon?
Do you want to talk about the items that we think are great?
Yeah, sure.
All of them. No,
Yeah. Well, it's like Abyssal Mask and Spirit Visage are super good MR items.
Yeah.
Like, as of 715, I think Abyssal Mask or Adapted Helm was probably okay. Like, they're super good like armor items as well. Like Knight's Vow is actually super good, and people are learning that. Like Gargoyle Stone Plates in there was a possible option. I think like Righteous Glory is not too bad with like Glacial Shroud in there as well.
Righteous Glory can be really good. Like there's
Locket's super good.
like almost all the items actually feel like, hey, there's a situation that I want this, and it's the best item, and that's actually really fun because coming from someone like when Tank Top was meta last time, it's like, okay, well, what do I build? Okay, I'm gonna build Sunfire and a Visage and an Iceborne.
And a Guardian Angel.
Maybe I'll build the Iceborne first and then the Sunfire second. That would be nuts, though.
Whoa!
Like
Spectre's Cowl first. It's Rumble Lane.
Yeah.
But now it's like there's actually like all these different options. Like there's I actually still think Iceborne and stuff is totally legitimate. Like, okay, I'm bullying my lane very hard. I can snowball this. Like my early damage as a tank is actually relevant because I'm ahead. Great, I'm gonna go for this. Like, oh, they're very crit heavy. Randuin sounds super sick. I have a strong carry. Well, now I'm actually going Knight's Vow second into a Stone Plate Locket. Oh, my team is very AP heavy, and I want to help increase that. Well, I'm going Abyssal Mask to be able to actually buff up my team. Like, it's really cool, and there's intelligent choices that I actually like when I'm optimizing it. I feel like I'm winning games, and I feel like really smart because of that, which is cool. When I'm fighting against like a tank who just has his Randuins and his Spirit Visage and his Sunfire, and I have Knight's Vow, like Locket and an Abyssal Mask for a team that has 4 AP or something, I'm like,
sweet.
I'm smarter than you, and I'm gonna
like
win.
that.
Yeah. It's super cool. I think there's actually, to a lesser degree, I think tanks have it in a better spot than like marksmen do. But I know I talked about it on like the cast a little bit last week with you, Jat. But I think like Essence Reaver is going to start seeing a bit more play on like the correct champions. Like Kog'Maw gets a huge cooldown reduction on his W. Tristana gets a huge cooldown reduction on the Q. And because we're in a more tank focused metagame, optimal DPS number checking is now a more important skill for marksmen. Because you have to get through the Thornmail Maokai somehow.
Right.
And you can't just be triple lifesteal Callista and expect that champion to die without optimal item builds. And even your Zeal choice, like Hurricane, because it gives you extra bullets that do 40% damage in a double tank or triple tank matchup, that's an 80% damage increase. There is no item in the game that gives you 80% more damage.
If you're
that's
hitting
not
that
named
triple
Hurricane,
frontline.
because they're 3 tanks. Now, if you're running like a Rumble, and like a Sona support, like I'm not buying that item. I'm going Shiv to go for some burst. And like there's choices to be made right here. I think it's really cool. We saw the Immortals AD carry, Cody-san, realized in his Kog'Maw game, oh, I'm not landing anymore. And he went, instead of Ruin King, which is the normal item, he went Rageblade first item because he's like, I'm not landing. I don't need lifesteal. Optimal DPS is Rageblade. And it's like, oh, this player's so smart. I'm so happy he's doing this.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I have actually a question for you because I saw some of the responses to that post were like, well, Freak, you're not taking in consideration item completion costs. You're not taking in consideration like how it fits into your build order. Like, how do I have enough gold for that Essence Reaver after my IE, blah, blah, blah. So like, what would your response be to that? Because there is something to be said for a quick 3 item completion.
I agree.
It's like you build a really expensive item and then I get a Shiv and a rapid fire. Boom.
No, and you're right. Like, if you're in a world where like, ooh, shoot, we're in a team fight 600 gold early, ooh, my bad. It's like, okay, well, that can happen, right? But if you're planning an item build, like, you've got to be reactive. Look, if you got Baron and you're recalling, you're going to end the game and you're at 3,000 gold, okay, go buy a rapid fire cannon because you're just going to win the game on the next push. So sure, obviously, go do that. But if you're like, wow, this Cho'Gath's going to be freaking invincible and we're not going to end the game in 5 minutes, like, I think you go optimal DPS. And I think you have to because there's a 7,000 health Cho'Gath and a Maokai that heals himself for half his health per every 3 seconds that you must find some way to kill, and that way is optimal DPS. And Essence Reaver, like, period, is that item.
Any LCS?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right, so Dignitas, they made some swaps. They've been doing pretty well again. It was like start of season, Dignitas 5-1. Oh, they're the best. Then Dignitas loses 4 series in a row. They suck.
Oh, they're the
All right,
worst.
now they're the best again.
Yeah.
So
they beat
what is
COD in P1.
Right? They're Altec and Adrian are in. They went 2-0. Now they're going to be playing TSM. Is it legit?
I
Like,
think it's
how
close.
good are they?
I mean, I don't think you can say that they are favored over TSM,
No.
but they definitely flipped the script a little
brain.
bit, and I think they're a playoff team here.
Yeah,
Right?
I
I
agree.
think they can actually be a playoff team because we know Someday is super good. They have settled on a jungler with Shrimp. Chaser was parting ways with the team, said he's going to go back to Korea.
Yep.
And Alltech and
Adrian.
we
got there. It's
the
okay.
double A lane,
I've made that
double A
mistake too.
tier lane in the bottom
Dude,
lane.
so double AT right now.
Yeah. Looks good, and that's a small sample size, but they are known quantity players. So when the known quantity players are playing well, I think they're more likely to sustain that than someone who just kind of had a good week. I think that
Even
is
if the player is a known quantity for not being that good.
thing is, I think Adrian has been good.
Mhm.
And I think
He's
he
been
has
successful.
I think he has a bad reputation.
Yeah.
And I do think it's because he slumped real hard, right? Whether it was motivation or other things, I do think he was legitimately not that good last split, right? When Team Liquid picked him up and then just decided not to really play him more than a single game, you knew something was up. But it feels like he's kind of back on it again. And he's a player. We talked about solo queue supports. Adrian was the original solo queue god support. Like,
Yeah.
This guy knows how to play. And then it's just a question of team cohesion, but it seems like something pretty good is going on there. They're 2 matches out of first place, right? Because of the way the standings are stacked. Not that they're ever going to go there, but I think they're a playoff team because bottom lane is better, Sunday's looking good, and I think Shrimp is better than Chaser.
So question to both of you guys, I guess, then
Yeah.
would be, so if they're a playoff team, like that's such a general statement, are they a 6th place playoff team that then gets swept in the first round? Or is this like, are they actually a contender?
So Jat and I actually talked about this very briefly when we were casting them against CLG, which was like, ooh, what if they played C9 or something? I think was the discussion briefly, and I think, or maybe it was off camera or something.
Right.
But you said that
Yeah.
C9 would still be favored.
Yep.
I jump on hype trains really early, and I'm wrong a lot of the time because of that. And it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, but I do like me as a person, I jump on hype trains early, and I jump to conclusions really quickly.
Yeah.
I think Dignitas are maybe like number 3 right now. Number 3, number 4, right? I think they're above C9. Like personally, like I would always take them against Cloud9. Like
Okay.
I would bet they beat Cloud9 if they matched the best
Yeah.
of 5. TSM, it's close. CLG, well, they just beat them. Immortals, that's probably pretty close too. So okay, maybe that's number 3. Or if they're as good as Immortals, that's number 2. Like automatically, based on results we've literally already seen,
Yeah.
right? And the fact that C9 slumping, you almost can't argue worse than that based on this form. Now you could say it was a fluke that they won those matches, and okay, that's fair. If you think it's a fluke, then it's a fluke. But they literally beat the teams they'd be playing in the playoffs.
I mean, one
the Lakers
game
beat the
win
Warriors
against-
last year in the regular season.
Yeah, like what,
Sure.
One
I mean,
game win over.
like I said, I'm jumping on a hype train.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
like,
jumping on a
sure,
hype train,
for
but the
sure.
results show it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always one of those things where it's like, well, oh yeah, summer split 2016 TSM, P1 beat them, so we know going into playoff
Well,
All right.
that this last place team.
Anyway, I think if they met C9 in the first round of the playoffs, I think C9 would still be favored just
Okay.
because of the gravitas of their accomplishments in the past. They've been very strong in that sense. Where would you see Dig going?
I see them as like that 5th, 6th team that probably doesn't
Yeah.
get past the first
I think
round.
they might make it to 4th, and if they make it to 4th, they have a chance.
Yeah.
Speaking of C9, 6-6.
Ooh.
What happened, man?
Top lane happened.
Top lane has been bad for a while.
Yeah.
Sneaky has not looked good.
Yeah.
I
agree.
am willing to write off last week because I know how sick they were. Sneaky couldn't talk for a week and a half. Even their translator was having trouble talking. Like there were a lot of things working against them last week. So I'm going to give them that chance to kind of jump back on the horse. They got 3 weeks remaining. As long as they don't miss playoffs, I think they can potentially be a force.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough for me because I feel like we've been giving C9 the benefit of the doubt
We have been.
for a long time
The whole
now,
split.
right?
Right.
It's 6 weeks of them being like, well, they were in the finals last time. They barely lost. They could have been the champs, right? Nothing changed. They're gonna be great.
Mhm.
Well, they're 6-6. Like this is not like week 1, week 2. Yes, they were sick last week,
Yeah.
and that can change some things. Like if we truly believe that their terrible week could have been turned around into a 2-0 week or something because of the sickness, because of of that disadvantage, then yeah, that makes a big difference. But I just don't know how good they actually are. Like until I can see some consistency from the top lane,
Right.
like I find it hard to bet on C9 and find it hard to say C9 is a top team in our league. Like I certainly can be convinced, right? Like if you give me 2 weeks in a row of Impact or Ray or a combination of both playing well rather, then I think they will be that team that'll be challenging for the finals again.
Yeah, because if they play well for 2 weeks, and their standings are going to be
Yeah,
top
then they're-
team,
But
right?
I just
It's
mean
not-
I just mean like
10
I
and
don't
6.
even care about like necessarily the win. Like just seeing Ray
Looking good.
and Impact individually looking good. Because those two guys have not been looking good to me, and it's been a long time since they have looked good for more than like one game at a time. So like
Mhm.
that's the big thing that I'm looking at. Like I know that the rest of the map can perform and has at times throughout this split. Jensen has been godlike. If you give both your solo laners like in a place where they're going to be winning their lanes consistently, and that's kind of how C9 used to be, then I think that's a hard team to beat.
Yeah, I guess the question for me is like, which scene are we going to see? Because right before Rift Rivals, they beat TSM, which like a lot of people say, oh, they're the best team in North America. It's TSM, of course they are. So it's like, okay, well, Cloud9 can beat those guys. Then they went to Rift Rivals, right? And before they got sick, they were the worst performing of the NA teams. They did worse than Phoenix One, who by their own admission, like threw their first game against Fnatic by letting them get Zac because Xpecial was like, oh, we just thought we were going to lose anyway, so we just scouted pick ban for the rest of NA, and that's why we lost the first game. And then the second game against Fnatic was like, oh, well, we threw a giant gold lead, so like they could have won anyway. So it's like, okay, so you did worse than Phoenix One, who like threw a game, air quotes, from Xpecial because they like let Zac go up against Fnatic. So it's like, okay, well, you're worse than P1, and P1 actually didn't even do very well last week either, and like it's not like they're sick. So it's like, which Cloud9 do we see? The one that beat TSM in week 5, or the one that still kind of is mediocre?
It reminds me a lot of COG in spring. We gave COG a bunch of excuses all spring split, and they got reverse swept in the quarterfinals.
By
and we said, ooh, maybe they were actually not that great the whole split. And then they kicked it into high gear, which I thought they were going to be able to do in the playoffs. So I think they're definitely at risk for having the same thing happen. But the same way Freak jumps on hype trains, I look at history, and I look at the banners that are all C9, TSM, and COG, and I know that generally speaking, those teams are almost always competitive, save for that time where COG was in the promotion tournament.
Yeah,
probably not going to happen.
Almost
C9.
got swept.
They reverse swept Cursed Academy. I think it was.
But either way, like there's a reason that I feel like C9 has always been in the conversation, and I'm not going to let a few losses detract from that reason.
That's fair. They have a lot of silver medals too. Like TSM have a lot of banners, but like C9 is like almost always the team in the final there. Like they consistently find a way to show up. For the one time they got 7th and still went to Worlds anyway. Yeah.
But we talked about the middle of the pack teams, COG Immortals, they play. They're both first. This is a battle for first, along with TSM if they win out. But COG versus Immortals, last time they played, Immortals crushed them. Who will win this matchup?
I have some worries about CLG simply because I know the public forward facing thing is there's no problems. Omega deserves to play, so he's playing, blah 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 blah. History to me has shown that like if someone is randomly getting subbed in when your team is doing really well, there are internal conflicts, there are issues happening, there's something going on, right? As far as that goes. And I could certainly be wrong about that, but most of the time it's because there is some sort of problem. And if there's a problem in scrims or problems internally and they're feeling like they have to bring in, oh my God, maybe this team is not going to be performing at the same level. We'll have to see. So that's why I'm kind of a little bit concerned for CLG. Like no team ever comes out and it's like, so I'd like to come out and say Freak's not going to be cashing this week because he was a real asshole
none of us
week,
like him anymore.
And none of us like him. And so we all said we weren't going to cast with him because he punched my girlfriend in the face, and we thought that was really weird.
Did not do that.
Right? So,
For the
it's
record.
like, but it's like,
you're right.
no one is going to come out and say that. We would just say, Freak has some family business.
Where's
this
Kobe,
week," or
Isaac?
whatever. Where is Kobe?
Is
family?
really?
Yeah, but you know what I mean, right? Like,
I do.
and it's fair to the player as well, because you don't want the community just slamming them because of like something they did,
argument
or
that
whatever,
happened.
right? Like, and we don't know if anything did happen, but like, it just makes me a little bit nervous when they have a bad week and the subs are coming in, even like after a loss, right? Like Dardoch loses, they sub in Oh My God. Like, are they just changing their roster?
So I have a bit more information on that, and I don't want to like divulge details that were told me in confidence, but I think my opinion on it is CLG are just happy to try out more of their academy members. And I assume they do sometimes splitting scrims, and based on those results, like I'm willing to believe the story forward, and based on what little bit extra information I have, that makes me still believe that story.
Don't you think that seeding is super important for them? Like they have like
Sure,
no championship points, right? They lost
I'm not saying
early
it's the
in
right
playoffs.
choice, but and right, and maybe that's actually because like I don't think Tony's an idiot. I don't think George is an idiot. Like
I don't think it needs to be internal issues, but has Dardoch looked great?
No.
Right? I mean, there's a chance
Sure.
that they actually are hoping Omar God is better. And
Well, that's what I mean, like, as far as,
the
like,
fire
issues.
Dardoch.
Like, it can be just
Yeah.
poor play. Like, I don't mean, like, oh, he's being toxic. I just mean, like, I don't think it's like, oh, we're just having fun, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, he said he deserves LCS scrim time, right? He deserves LCS match time, and if that's because Omar God's literally playing better than Dardoch, then exactly that's what's happening.
Yeah, I think SKT has done it. We talked about it from the start of the episode, but you have Blank and Peanut, you have Huni and Untara, and they sub them in sometimes in high pressure situations, sometimes in low pressure situations, because you never know when you're going to need it, right? If Dardoch is tilting off the face of the earth in game 2 after 2 games of a best of 5, you put in Omar God, and then you're happy that you put him in the regular season and took a lump, because ultimately you need to win that best of 5. So
Yeah.
currently, I'm fine with that. They might do it with more positions later, but for now it's just that one. As far as the series goes, though, like COG didn't look clean last week, and I think Immortals has been a little faster with the meta understanding and what they're going to play.
Yeah.
Olleh clearly
Olleh's rank
understands the
1.
meta. Rank 1, baby. There you go. That's what actually gives you NALCS. So I'm going to favor Immortals 2-1.
Yeah, I'm looking at Immortals to win it, I think, as well. I mean, CLG just like you said last week looked pretty bad, and the jungle thing is a little bit concerning for me.
I just say 2-0 straight up. Like, I don't like catching my bets saying, oh, they'll win a game. It's like the better team should just win both. So I think Immortals definitely are the better team, and I'd say it's 2-0.
That's what I always say with series predictions. Where they're like, I pick a 3-1.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the
3-1
lamest
either
prediction.
way
Give me
is
a
the
3-0.
most cop-out.
3-1 either way.
3-1 either way means you're at most one game
Statistically,
off.
though, 3-1 is the most likely outcome.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fair.
And 2-0 and 2-1 are basically the same likelihood. I'd like to see what's more likely. Anyway.
Want to move on to Twitter questions?
I think so.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. So we got the first question here is from Forecast at Forecast Winter. He says, not to blame the draft, but when do you start blaming the draft? Fly draft versus CLG was a disaster, and that's normal for them.
Right, I'm going to pull up this draft.
Okay, you can pull it up, but I mean, to me, when I start blaming draft, there was a draft I'm trying to think that like caused me like physical pain when I saw it, and it was one of the ones I was casting, and it was one of these ones. It was actually, I think it was actually a CLG draft, and I want to say it was either
Against
the
FlyQuest?
beginning of this split or it was last split. It was a while ago, and when I hate drafts is when I feel like you're pigeonholed into a very small win condition, and you also have not given yourself the tools to like get to that win condition. So
We have an early game team with the bad laning phase.
exactly, that was so CLG essentially did a 5 physical damage comp. This was, I can't remember. It was within the last.
I remember
6
seeing this
months.
game though.
It was a 5 physical damage comp with 3 losing lanes.
Yep.
And I'm like, you have to win before 20 minutes, and you're going to lose every lane. How do you ever win this game? And the answer is, well, 90% of the time you don't, right? And that's when you start blaming the draft. Like, you need to be able to see, A, what is the win condition? B, do you have a good opportunity to get there? If you do, then I think early game strategies are fine. I don't think you blame the draft. But like when people pigeonhole themselves into early game comp without ways to win early game, blame the draft. If you're supposed to win late game but you have no scaling, blame the draft. Like that's how I see it.
I'm going to guess it was game 1 of the FlyQuest series where they picked Rumble top, Kha'Zix jungle, Corki mid, Kalista bot with a Sona. So it's very low engage, but it's very pushing lanes to me, which like I'm not going to fully blame the draft on that one. So in this case, I would say don't blame the draft because it still has a win condition. And their scaling on that comp is pretty good too.
As far as blaming the draft for me, like I'm shocking to the internet, a very stats like numbers based person. And I mean, the goal is to have a 51% or higher chance to win based on comps. Like if you remove nameplates, like which team is better, that means you won the draft, right? And if you lost that, then you lost the draft. And you can blame the draft a little bit. And you have to kind of pick the number at which like how bad is my win rate to where it's like, man, this coach screwed us, right? Like I'll take a 40-52 and be like, let's just play better and we're fine. But if it's like 30-70, it's like, well, they have a 2-1 chance to win just based on draft. That's our coach's fault. And like that's the draft's fault. And like that's how I view that situation. Play the game out 100 times, who wins, more often. And that's the lens I use.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think we've almost overcorrected about like, oh, I don't want to blame the draft. It's the way you play because sometimes the drafts are just bad.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's just an outplay or like a redraft or not understanding the scouting of champion pools. Anyway, your boy Joe at Joe Heenan says, what solo queue champ do you think differs the most in playstyle from bronze to silver to diamond?
All right, so I have an answer like that I think pops up immediately. Any champion that is like essentially a roaming champion, like when you have to play the map.
Thresh.
So
or
it's
Bard.
like Aurelion Sol or Bard, like champions like this where you must play the map well. Anytime I ever see like I play a lot of normal games with my girlfriend, with other friends and stuff who are like bronze players, they play a roaming champion and then they just sit in lane and they play their 1v1, right? When you watch a top level, like if you're saying hyperbole going
Who he plays
further,
Aurelion Sol.
like exactly like
Yeah.
bronze to challenger, the Aurelion Sol in bronze probably never leaves their lane, or if they do, they don't understand how to push the
When
wave
to
and
leave
when to
lane.
leave the lane and all this. When you watch the top level players on Bard and on this, they're so proactive around the map. They can win multiple lanes. They know when to roam. They know when to stay in lane. Like that to me, just playstyle wise, is so massively different.
Yeah. I would say like the support role in general is probably the most different. Your wards actually matter in Challenger. They matter less in Bronze. People forget to watch their mini map.
They don't even see the ward, yeah.
Right. I mean, I think that is the role with the substantially most different sort of gameplay style. I would generally say mid laner though as well, and I would put it as a mid laner who's supposed to push a side lane once outer turrets fall. right? Like if you're playing a Diana or a Zed or a LeBlanc or something, it's like in Diamond, I tell my team, oh, hey, I should go mid lane because I'm playing bot lane, right? It's like, hey, I need to go mid lane as Tristana or as Calista or whatever.
Mhm.
Hey, LeBlanc or Cassiopeia or Ryze or whoever, go bot lane. And they're like, yeah, okay, because they understand it makes sense, but they're never doing it themselves. They're never understanding their own, whether they're low or mid diamond, generally speaking, like, oh, I should be playing bot lane. They get it when I ask them to because they realize it's the right play because they're good enough players to understand that, but they're not proactive on that decision. So even in like a mid to low diamond level, like people aren't
I would say
immediately
also
doing
sometimes
themselves.
people will flame you if you just go and they're like, I'm still laning bot. Like
Yeah.
some people just are not happy about
Get
that.
out of my
Yeah.
lane.
Right.
I think the other one you look at it would just be what would be a fearful champion in bronze. I know Malphite always springs to mind.
Mhm.
Champions that high level players can counterplay because they're champions with counterplay, but people who aren't as good can't do it. So a Malphite ultimate, when everyone's grouping 5v5 mid, is going to crush you. But in pro play, they're spaced out. You're only going to hit 1 or 2 people. They have the reaction time to flash it.
Yep.
And that champion feels bad.
Is that playstyle though, or is that effectiveness?
That's effectiveness. 'Cause
Most in play style. I guess play style wise, I mean, it's absolutely right, but I was just adding to the
Sure,
discussion.
and I agree. I think Anivi's another one who's effective
Because he's still trying to press R. It's just missing.
missing.
Oh,
But
they
you're
flashed
right.
it.
There's plenty of champions that scale inversely with opponent's skill, such as Anivia, who has a lot of counterplay as well, where it's like good
Yeah.
players don't ARM against the glacial storm.
All right, last question we got here from Brad. That guy 8, I think. Individual talent versus team synergy. Fun question. Drop Faker on a team Liquid, Language Barrier, and all. Do they climb?
Well, they absolutely climb.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, how do you not?
So a better question I think is Team Liquid is like they have a 16% win rate or whatever. Probably a lot of people saw the thread. I'm not going to really go into what the thread said,
Yeah.
but
It's not a good win rate.
no, it's a bad
Yeah.
win rate and it's bad for your health. But so maybe Faker can solo carry some wins on that. But like if you put him into like a middle of the pack team with language barrier, like if you're
Put him into
if you're-
Immortals.
if you're literally saying that they cannot talk to him, like there's not even translation, nothing, and I cannot communicate with this person. If you put them on Immortal, I think their win rate goes down. But that is saying you cannot ever talk to
Yeah.
them, right? Like if you can talk through everything they needs and they wants, then sure, then it goes up. But it's like he's gonna have certain expectations and like things that he expects you to do, and if you're not doing those, he's gonna be playing a way that requires that kind of.
I think it's always a spectrum. So we don't have a way of doing this stat, but I know other sports do this. I'm always stretching my wrist, by the way.
I usually follow you whenever you do it. I
yeah.
just noticed that.
It's good to stretch
They're
your wrist.
praying to
it's,
the Elo
it's a stat
god.
called
Dear Faker, please let me win that game.
Faker, please may I get challenger?
it's a stat
Also
called
for Master.
WAR,
Yeah.
which stands for wins above replacement.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way I don't know what goes into it, but that's what we're trying to answer here. How many wins above replacement would Faker be for Golden Glue on Team Liquid?
Mhm.
And across an 18 game season, I say Faker adds
18.
Yeah.
18 match. 18
I actually think Faker adds 5, right? Because
Game or
I
match
don't
wins?
think those would be match wins.
Okay.
So that's literally, 25% more of your games. But he turns them into a mid-tier team, which is a sad thing to say, but that's just how important it is. And you're never going to get a player, even LeBron James, he adds like 25 or 30 WAR over an 82-game season,
Yeah.
right? You're never going to get a player that just turns a dumpster fire into a world champion because it is obviously going to be the team.
Especially when they're like, the question talks about language barrier, right? Like if
Mhm.
like if we're talking, okay, you have a translator, they're working with a team, he's learning English, all this stuff, then I think Faker is like insane
If
pickup.
Faker
Your
is
team
suddenly
is
fluent in English,
Yeah,
you put him
you're-
on any team in the world.
yeah,
Or
and-
whatever
and-
language he needs to learn.
And you expect that he can teach your team how to play the
Oh,
game
yeah.
better, right? Like, and you expect them then to have a massive increase. But like, my answer is basically like, Faker sits down beside me. I don't even know what he's saying. Like, I don't even know where he wants me to do.
Yeah, if it's solo queue, it's fine because no one
Yeah,
talks
yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
Like he can just smart ping to me and
Yeah.
I'll
Right.
engage when he roams down.
Team Liquid has a 16% win rate
Yeah.
now.
They're
I say
106.
Faker takes them to 40.
Okay.
What does he take?
With translators and with like him wanting to be here, I think they go higher. I think they
Yeah,
can
I
go.
mean, I think they buy Faker, right? Like they start on
Yeah.
Nori, they drop Rain over, they
You're
they drop
sixth
Oda-
place in the
Yeah,
NALCS.
so they have
Yeah, they
Nori,
make-
Lorlo, Piglet, and Matt with Faker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6th place.
Yeah.
Do I really say that? That's hard. But yeah, I mean, I think they're not top 3. I think I'd take the big 3 above them. Yeah, I mean, maybe they make semis. Maybe they get 4th.
I mean,
4th or 6th.
Someday was like this 3rd best player in Korea,
Right.
and
It's
he
a good-
almost got relegated last split.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I mean, you're right. Like
Yeah.
we've seen from players like Someday.
You need a good
Yeah.
team, and you
Yeah.
need people who can play around you, like the way that that they do, right? Like Faker gets behind. Well, he's gonna find a way to get back into the game. It's not just through him, but it's through his team, like enabling him and setting him up to succeed and all these things, right? It's like they are the best because they're the best team. It's not just because Faker is the best player.
Yeah, absolutely. Faker has great teammates on SKT.
Yep.
All right, that's going to wrap up this episode of The Dive.
Great.
You can find us on YouTube if you want to look at our average-looking faces, or if you want to hear our voices, which I think you can differentiate with the power of sound. You can check us on SoundCloud or other podcast platforms.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Remember to keep sending in Twitter questions and catch us when the LCS kicks off this Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific. It's Cloud9 versus Phoenix 1.
Hype.